Today's episode of In the Trenches is brought to you by System 12 Guitar Method. Sign up today at ryanroxy.com.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxy.
Well, one of the things that was really cool is my instructional programs helped out a lot of people. For example,
are you talking about like Speed Kills? And are you talking about?
Yeah. And then I had one called a Starlix video before Speed Kills. Okay. And that was I was still I was still playing locally in LA, and I hadn't been signed with Nitro, but it was after the Van Halen. And yeah, exactly right. That exact era. And that's right around when I did this first instructional program. And people like John Petrucci watched it, got the idea of jazz threes, because I always use jazz picks. He studied it. Michael Romeo from Symphony X, he told me that he studied it. And one of the biggest one was Dime. I'll never forget this. I was in Nitro, and Dime saw me in concert before they were big. Cowboys from Hell had just come out. I didn't even do Speed Kills yet. We were in Florida recording our second album, Nitro, and we went to this little club. Nobody was there except for the band. We knew the bartenders there. We were just hanging out. And my guitar tech, he went by Dragon. He's like, dude, you got to hear this band, bro. They rule, dude. You know, he was from Fresno and full on ecstasy, bad, dude. And so we go there to see this unknown band named Pantera. Nobody was in the crowd. And I'm standing in the audience like this. I see this dude come out with this beard and these long shorts, you know, and this is the era of Larry Bird, you know, with the little, you know,
the tiny shorts. He's
got these long shorts on. We're thinking, boy, he looks out there, and here we're these LA hair metal guys. No, we don't look weird. But and he actually stopped. There was nobody around me for 10 feet. There was nobody there, literally. And in Cowboys from Hell had just been released, and we're in Orlando, Florida. And all of a sudden, Dom goes like this. He goes, "Is that Michelangelo?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude." He goes, "I got your instructional program, dude." He goes, "You're like my guitar teacher, man." And then he goes, "Pantera's going to dedicate tonight's set to Michelangelo." And I was just floored. And I mean, I had heard those songs, Cowboys from Hell, and that I was already a fan before and of course, you know, shortly after that, they exploded. I mean, it was just like, boom, you know, that album just blew up. But I talked to Dime afterwards, and, you know, we just got to be really friendly. We would do you know, I was with Washburn for a while in the 90s with Dime. And so we would do like in-stores together. And, you know, I got to know him really well. And he was supposed to play on one of my albums called Hands Without Shadows, right? The next tour stop was Chicago before he got shot. We were just devastated. I mean, we had
there's been way too much of that, you know, even the shooting just, you know, has been way too much of that in our current climate still, you know, senseless stuff.
You know, I know this is an off topic thing, but when I knew Vinnie Paul, his brother, pretty well, and we would go, you know, because of the Dean, you know, Vinnie was with D-Drum, that was a Dean company. So we would go to Europe and, you know, Vinnie would, you know, we would congregate like in these different music expos, you know, like in Frankfurt, Germany, the Music Mason stuff. And Vinnie used to always have a bodyguard with him at that time called Cowboy. And so it was me, Vinnie, David Vincent from Morbid Angel, who's our close friend. And we were sitting down and we had a really nice dinner in Germany, and we were drinking beer. And Vinnie told me, I would never ask in a million years, you know, what happened. I mean, how rude can that be? You know, I would never, ever ask.
He was up for sharing.
And Vinnie talked to me about it. He talked to me about what happened on stage. He goes, man, he goes, the only thing that saved me was my drums. He said the guy was pointing the gun right at his face and shooting, and it was ricocheting off the hardware of his drums. And I'm like, I till this day, you know, I can just picture us sitting there. And I mean, me and like David were just like, we didn't say a word. I mean, no comment. What, you know, I didn't ask him about it, but I can only imagine the feeling of that, a point blank range, and to live through that ordeal, it was just something else.
And literally after that, you end up. That's what you're both working with Washburn, and then you also work with Dean as well. So I mean, there's so much history between the two of you, and the fact that he was your Starlix, protege. And I do have to say this in all honesty, there is another name to add to that Starlix list, because here I am guilty of that, or actually proud to say that I did take some Starlix lessons as well.
They were a great company.
Yeah, because you know what? I remember now borrowing from my buddy that was at that I had gone to GIT with, because I wanted to learn some stuff and I wanted to learn some licks, and Starlix was the way to do it. I love it. And Speed Kills as well, with a bunch of other your instructional programs, because you are always putting out new stuff, like whether it's instructional programs or some of these videos that you touched upon earlier, that you have put together with these young internet influencers.
NITRO might not be regarded as one of the most influential rock bands of all time, but it did have riff master guitarist Angelo Batio, whose superior guitar slinging skills inspired a generation of younger players. Speaking on the podcast In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie, Batio recalled a story from the early 90s when he attended a Pantera show and found out that Dimebag Darrell was a fan of his. Batio said, he goes, "I got your instructional program, dude. You're like my guitar teacher, man." And then he goes, "Pantera is going to dedicate tonight's set to Angelo," and I was just floored. Batio said he quickly struck up a friendship with Dimebag, and the pair saw each other on a regular basis throughout the years. He also revealed that Dimebag committed to play on his 2005 album Hands Without Shadows, but the guitarist died before he could lay down his tracks.
Yeah, thank you. Usually the one that got away is about a piece of gear that you had to sell at one point, or whether, it got stolen, which is obviously this quad guitar. So what's the story? When did it get stolen? How did it get stolen? Do you know who stole it? And how can we get it back?
Well, the quad, the original one that I used in the NITRO videos, we only had it for 2 shows on the tour. And we ended up, our first tour date was in San Diego. Then we deadheaded it to El Paso. And then from that point, it was just, a lot of dates in a row. But the very beginning, we had that day off. So we had, at that time, the label was giving us a lot of tour support. We had our own production. We had our truck, and, for a baby band, as our manager used to call it, we had a really huge support. The label really liked us. And in all fairness, Jim was just the coolest guy. Like, the singer Jim and I really have never had an argument. First, he killed me because he's a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, but he's just a genuinely good dude. And he's in the good mood. Like, I like to be in a good mood. But what happened is, the second show of our tour, we were playing El Paso, and we had all the gear loaded up. And now this is clubs. These are clubs.
Are you doing a van U-Haul? Are you doing a van with a U-Haul?
No, we had a tour bus. We had a
whole tour bus. Okay, so where's the equipment in? Is it in a back trailer?
Yeah, and we had a 24-foot Ryder truck with the gear, and all the gear was in the Ryder truck.
Real deal, yeah.
The label was really behind us back then, and so we were traveling in style. And what happened was, my guitar tech Dragon comes. It's like, dude, because we were finished, and we had another show that was pretty close, because Texas, is so big. But our routing was really good, so it was only a couple hours to the next show. I don't remember what city, but so we were just hanging out, talking to some people afterwards. All the gear was loaded, the crew was there, everything was done, and all of a sudden, Dragon comes in. He's like, "Dude, you won't believe this. They broke into the Ryder truck, just took my quad, and the quad was gone."
It's somewhere.
It's gone. And I'm like, oh man,
you
but
can't pawn shop that. You cannot. And so it was definitely an orchestrated hit, because why wouldn't they take anything else except the quad guitar? So it had to have been either a hardcore fan or a very disgruntled girl, back, I don't know. It was the 80s, but where do you think it is now?
Well, what happened, and see, somebody just put up thing, where are you going to pawn a 4-neck guitar? That's the question we had. How the hell are you gonna sell this thing?
Yes.
And so what happens is we the next day, because we had time, because the next show wasn't, we visited some local pawn shops, and we didn't know, it was too early, but we said, look, if you see this, this is guitar stolen. So we put the word out. Now we didn't have the internet at that time. So we were limited to just going to different places and calling, and then during the tour, we would call like local pawn shops. We got, like a list of a bunch of them. We never found it. And so we surmised that it's probably a collector that took it. Maybe some guy wanted it, and it's, what I mean? Just who knows? But here's what's wild. Now, this was in the late 80s. So we're talking 89, it gets stolen. In 2004, I'm touring England, and I get an email from a fan, and he goes, Mike, you won't believe this. I said, what? He goes, there's a guy that bought the top half of your quad because he collects Charvel guitars,
the top half.
Yeah. And he's bragging that he's got Michelangelo's half of his quad. Now I'm going to London. And so I talked and I'm doing a tour of England and among other places in like a week or two. So I contacted the promoter there, and he arranged, it turns out it was a kid, like a teenager, right. And his dad and him collect guitars. So what happened was we arranged, and I was livid. I was like, and then because the guy's name was Mick Seymour, that was the guy that I work with in England. And Mick goes, Michael, they want you to give them 1,500 quid for the guitar. That's what they paid for it. I go, I don't want to pay for my own guitar. And I thought about
the exact same story. That's crazy.
Bastards. But I thought, okay, 1,500 pounds, I can get my guitar back. So he worked it out. We met, and he claimed that he didn't know it was mine, but I do have the proof that he knew it was mine, but I didn't care. I wasn't there to argue with him. I get my guitar back. It was in horrible condition. I got the 2 top ones back, but we never got the 2 bottom ones back. We don't know.
The bottom is missing.
Yeah.
The bottom of Michelangelo's original. Was it the original quad?
Yes. The original one. It had original Kahler 7 strings. It was the one in the Freight Train video, the NITRO video, the 4-neck guitar. The 2 top ones were left-handed, and I got the back plate of the quad and the back plate of the double returned to me, but the 2 bottom guitars were never saw them.
Somewhere.
And
they got to be somewhere.
Given the condition of the top 2, they were really bad shape.
If they might be in a vault in Japan, but they got to be maybe Rick Nielsen has it in his vault. He's got a lot of guitars. I don't know. But I have this funny thing is I have the exact same story of a GMP Flying V, Carina 58 Beautiful replica that was made for me that got stolen out of Alice Cooper's warehouse. It ended up years later being sold to someone in a Canadian music shop. We found at this point the insurance had already been paid out, blah blah blah. The guy offered, he goes, look, if you can buy it back if you want from what I paid for it, I'm making you that offer because now I know it's your guitar. And at that point I just said, you know what? And he was a fan too. He was a fan of the band. I just said, you know what? You keep it. If I ever really need it, I appreciate you offering that. But if I ever really need it, I'll ask you for it. But right now, this is yours. Now you already paid for it, And so, because he didn't know it was stolen when it happens. But that's a crazy story, man. But let's find that bottom half of that guitar
I'd love to.
right now.
We put the word out forever, but you would think with a unique guitar like. And I don't mean to drop names. I mean, we work with the people we work with.
Please drop whatever names. We love, this is a podcast. We need as many sound bites as possible. So drop all the names you want.
It's the way it is, And anyway, I was in upstate New York doing a workshop, and Joe Bonamassa' dad owned a music store up in that area. So we arranged for me and Joe to meet because we had never met. So we meet, it was private, and we were laughing because he uses Jazz 3 picks like I do. And I had Dunlap I have my own special color. It says Angelo Batio, and they're blue Jazz 3s. Well, he has ones in gold. So we were comparing our guitar picks, and he's a really cool dude. And he was there. He bought these 2 Marshall stacks, and he's into collecting some, as you know, some like serious vintage guitars. I have about 20 vintage. Most of my collection are guitars that I have acquired, a lot of USA ones over the years that are special to me, or Joe actively hunts them out. But we were talking about, like, I said, Joe, what do you're going on stage with 59 Les Pauls, man. You're touring with like the cream of, Stradivarius, not to bring that word up again, but he goes, yeah, but you know what? I'm not worried about it. Cause that's what I asked him. Are you worried if somebody steals it? And he said a great thing. He goes, no, because they're so well documented. Where the hell are you going to sell them? And that's very true, but, my quad, it wasn't so much it was documented. It's so unique. Well, where are you going to go?
It's documented in that video. But if you want to check out, if anybody needs proof and they think they might have some information leading to the recovery of Angelo Batio's bottom half of the quad guitar, go check out the Nitro video, of course, Freight Train, and you're going to check out an amazing solo, because at this point, we're just a bunch of guitar geeks right now on the podcast, and I'm happy about that because I do have some guitar geek questions.